Hello, my name's Marcus,
I'm Fionn.
and you're listening to the Recovery Hub podcasts,
Knowing the Score with Eternal Media.
a drug education and alcohol education series of podcasts.
This is a co-production between Eternal Media, Meddwl Ymlaen, Mind Our Future, and North Wales Area Planning Board.
We're here with Alex, Levi and Josh. I'm Luke, of course. So, Levi and Josh, what are you hoping to get from this conversation that we're about to have?
Hope for it to help others around drugs and trying to raise awareness and trying to show support around it. I think that's the main.
How about you, Josh?
Mostly I'm here for the personal benefit of it. I know a few people who've gone down the path, some recovered, some not, and I just want to better understand what their thoughts are or were, because I just don't feel in a position to ask them myself.
Let's get into it then. We're going to start with early life and background. So, what was school life like for you?
Initially, I moved around a little bit with my family. Initially, school was really good. I was in the top sets. I did really well at school. I think I craved that external validation from the teacher, so I liked doing really well until I discovered alcohol and things, and then my schoolwork went down the pan, really.
What was home life like for you?
I kind of had two different homes. My parents got divorced when I was quite young. My dad lived overseas, so with some of my brothers and sisters, and I lived in England with one brother and sister. I suppose it was a bit chaotic, really. My mum was a teacher. She remarried. She was out a lot. She played bridge and had a lot of activities, and we had lots of pets, like lots. So the house was a little bit chaotic, but there was, love and stuff. You know, there was no cruelty or anything like that. You know, I thought it was a normal childhood. I probably don't now, but at the time, yeah, I did. But very different. So my home with my dad overseas was, very different. So he lived in Asia and stuff. So it was quite affluent. You know, we had a swimming pool and staff and things like that. So absolutely spotless and pristine. And then my home in England was, very different. A bit messy and chaotic. So, yeah.
Am I correct to assume that you travelled between the both then?
Yeah, well, I went to school in England until I dropped out. So I would just go to my dad for the summer. But in those days, you could take time off school. So I used to go for a couple of months, and then sometimes I'd go for a month at Christmas. So mostly I live with my mum over here, yeah. You
mentioned just now that you dropped out. How old were you when you dropped out, and why?
Well, I did my GCSEs at school, and then I stayed on to do A-levels, but I took an overdose and I was too embarrassed to go back to my school, so I went to a college, and I was just struggling, I guess, I didn't know how to handle my feelings and things like that. So when things got too tough, I just want to run away. So I went to college for a little bit, and then I went to do my A-levels and live with my dad in Jakarta. Yeah.
Were there people around you aware? Or primarily family and stuff, because I'm sure friends were a lot more aware, but
I think I hid a lot of stuff. I didn't even realise I was hiding it. I think I thought everyone sort of felt like I did. No, they weren't aware. I had an eating disorder and things like that, but no, I didn't tell anyone. I think I thought they might take it away from me. I did go to the doctors. I was on antidepressants and things like that, so my family were aware to an extent, but I don't think they really knew what was going on in my head. I don't think I did, really.
Talking about family, is there any sort of family history with addiction?
There wasn't, but my brother recently died this year from cirrhosis. My sister doesn't drink anymore, but I don't know, the three of us, I think, don't have very healthy relationships, but I don't know whether that's nature or nurture, but not historically going back. My parents didn't have any problems with drugs or alcohol or anything like that.
And you have a very large family as well, don't you?
Yeah, I'm one of 8 children.
Did your friends have any influence on how you were feeling at the time?
Do you know, like, I still have my friends from school, and they all did really well at school. And even though I hung around with them, I think I would choose whichever one was not doing the homework that night and hang around with them and sort of rotate myself between them, because all my family are like, how come everyone else did really well and you didn't? But I mean, they knew stuff was going on with me, because I used to run away from home and stay at their houses and things like that. We only really, I probably spoke about it since I've been in recovery, probably 6 years. They just tried to be friends and love me, but I guess, yeah, I didn't understand at the time, so I don't think they did. And I think they used to drink or, take recreational drugs and stuff, but they just used to be able to stop. I don't think anyone really knew what was going on. So, with some of the stuff, but not all of it, really.
When did you start using substances and things like that?
Probably about 10, but it wasn't consistently. A friend had a birthday party and we found some homebrew in the garden shed, and we drank that. And I just remember, like, the first time when I drank beer. I mean, we used to have wine at dinner and stuff like that, only like little sips. My parents thought it would give me respect for alcohol if it wasn't like a big surprise and it was just part of family life. I used to use that line a lot, actually. But I've always had like negative sort of internal thinking. So if I was sitting in this room, I'd be like wondering what you were thinking about me. It'd always be really negative. And the first time I had a drink, it was like, that all quietened down. It was like, I didn't care what you were thinking anymore. So I was probably about 12 when I started drinking every weekend. And I think I went to my first pubs and stuff like that. I was very tall for my age. So yeah, probably 12, 13, properly. And
What was your first drug?
alcohol. Alcohol has always been I loved it. It was, and also I didn't really I do think of alcohol as a drug now, but I didn't really at the time, because it's everywhere, isn't it? Every celebration, christenings, weddings, funerals, you celebrate, commiserate. And for me, I loved what it did to me. I didn't think it was anything bad. It sort of gave me the missing pieces to me, if that makes sense. It made me confident. It made my overthinking stop. I think that was the main thing. And then just all the other stuff I just tried for fun, really. But it was always really alcohol.
When did you really start relying on alcohol, whether you knew about it or not? Do you know, like, around when it would have been in your life where you were like, oh, I can't do this, I really need it? When you started getting like that?
I probably started relying on it straight away. It was like I'd found the solution to Alex. So if I ever went anywhere and socialised, I'd have to have a drink. Probably almost straight away, but I mean, I wasn't physically dependent or anything straight away. I didn't think I had a problem probably until my mid-30s. But if I look back on my life, it was almost straight away, really. My schoolwork went down the pan, and then it's just a series of like loads of missed opportunities. But because I didn't have really bad consequences, I didn't think it was a problem. I'd lose jobs, or I'd not turn up for a party, or I'd be late for something, or, because I'd been drinking. But new opportunities would always come along. And because thought I was having such a great time, I didn't think it was a problem. Like, I dropped out of uni, but I got a job working for some wine merchants in London. And then I had a career, and, I was a general manager of wine bars and stuff like that. So I was drinking heavily, but it was kind of part of my personality. It was my career. It was everything. So I didn't think it was a problem until, I guess, the consequences started being really bad. And, I started the paranoia, and I started to be physically unwell and things like that. But looking back, it was probably a problem right from the beginning.
So do you think you were using it, or but at first, do you think you were using it for the fun of it, or were you, as you just described, it would make, the voices quiet down, as you said. Were you like self-medicating with it, or?
Definitely, I was self-medicating, but I didn't realise that at the time. It just made everything better. It just made everything I did, if I had a drink, it just made it better, because I was quite anxious and I'm actually socially quite awkward. I'm really quite shy, but people don't think that, because if I know people, I'm really comfortable, or if I had a drink in me, I'm really outgoing and confident. So, but without it, I couldn't be that. So I guess I started using it more and more. Ridiculous things. If I had an interview and I would be like really nervous, I'd have a little drink before. I think I did before I had my driving lessons as well. So I would be nervous driving. Not enough to obviously be over the limit, but yeah. So it was to have fun, obviously, but I think I just felt uncomfortable without it.
How aware were you about addiction as a whole? Because, did you ever think that you'd get addicted? Did you ever gloss over the idea that, it could be addiction? How educated and aware were you of addiction at the time?
Well, I mean, I knew about addiction, but I certainly didn't think that I fell into that category. I was running successful businesses, I turned up for work, I had lots of friends, I was reliable, I was responsible. Even though I was addicted, I didn't realise that that was me at all. And even when my life was kind of falling apart and I started losing jobs and I started moving and things like that, I actually put it down to that I had poor mental health, and that actually alcohol was the only thing helping me get through a day. So even then, when everything was going wrong, I still didn't think that alcohol was the problem. I still thought alcohol was helping me, and the problem was me and my mental health. So I didn't actually realise that the alcohol was causing all of it until I came into recovery, until I came into a 12-step room. I still thought I'll sort out the alcohol bit and then I'll sort out my mental health, which I didn't need to do. All along it was the alcohol.
So you mentioned that you started drinking consistently at 12, did you say?
Well, every weekend, not daily by then, yeah.
When did you, how old were you when you realised that it was a problem? So how long were you drinking for before you realised, wow?
My 30s. So probably, yeah, my 30s. After I had my son, I guess I thought when I had my son that my life would change totally, but it didn't. And obviously trying to be like super mum, which is what I wanted to do. I was working full time. I was a single parent. I still wanted to be like the hostess with the most, super mum and all that. And I started not being able to manage everything. And I realised that, yeah, that it was a problem. But by then I was also taking a lot of cocaine as well, and I started getting psychosis and things like that. I took the cocaine so I could drink more, so I could stay sober. So that was the solution to the alcohol, and I ended up leaving London and moving to be near my family, because I did realise that cocaine was a problem, but I was able to put that down, just not the alcohol.
So what was your wake-up call to the fact that you were addicted, and what really motivated you to go into recovery?
I just couldn't go on anymore. Every minute of every day I wanted to die. I think that was it. I couldn't manage it. It stopped working. It stopped giving me confidence. It stopped giving me all of that stuff. I couldn't look in the mirror. I absolutely hated who I was. I'd sold my home. I was unemployable. I was physically very ill. I was physically dependent, and everything I tried, like I went to the doctors, I did counselling. I moved quite a few times. I moved here to North Wales, and I didn't know what recovery was, if that makes sense. I didn't really understand it. So it was the point where I thought, I am going to kill myself. And I didn't want to do that to my son, because I absolutely adore him. I really do. And everything I did was kind of, for him. So I knew probably 10 years before I found a 12-step fellowship was my recovery route. I'd been really, really trying to control and moderate.
You know, when you said about back then you didn't understand that there was support out there, do you think it would have been beneficial for the school, like for example when you were in schools before you dropped out, for them to like notify, like understand like you were struggling?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I don't think we're given the tools to handle. I mean, I think it's the people that I've spoken to in recovery that it's quite this low self-esteem is to do with a lot of it, and with a lot of people I know that are in recovery, it kind of started at school and things. Yeah, I think schools or society could help people a little bit more with that. There could be. I do loads of stuff now to make myself feel good that I had no concept of. So yeah, I think if I'd learnt a way to manage my thoughts and feelings and emotions when I was young, I don't know, maybe I wouldn't have gone down that path, but it worked really well. I didn't think it was a problem, you know, it worked. And it was fun and exciting, you know, as well. I wasn't with a crowd that was committing crimes and doing stuff. We were all just having fun, and everyone else was still doing really well in their exams and things. So.
So you said that if you would have the tools to, you know, work through the trouble in your mind, how do you do that today in recovery?
I do it well with a 12-step program. You look at all things like that. You learn to separate, I guess, your thoughts from your feelings. That's kind of what I've learned to separate. So I don't necessarily listen to my thoughts because I can have quite negative internal thoughts about myself or about other people. But I learned to separate that from my actions and my behaviours, if that makes sense. So I might think something, but I can laugh at it or I can dispute it because it's not kind of what my heart says or the core of me thinks. So, and I guess you learn in recovery to do esteemable things. So your self-esteem gets better, doesn't it? To value yourself as a human being, to celebrate your flaws as well. I think that I've always had a search for perfectionism, and that's quite common amongst a lot of people that I meet in recovery. I don't now. I'm quite happy to be flawed, make mistakes and stuff.
Based off what you said about how it benefited you and you were self-medicating with it, were you aware at the time of the two different people you were, as in the sober you and the drunk you? Were you aware that they were two different people, really?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know if I was. I don't know if I was aware. Definitely towards the end, you know, they'd probably have conversations with each other. Yeah, I just remember when I was younger, just not wanting to think and being worried about being on my own. Like I hated going to bed at night, you know, lying down because then my head would just take off, you know. So even then, I'd have to be exhausted or play music or do something. So I didn't think, but I don't think I really. I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know.
What was your drink of choice? Were you into spirits, or what were you drinking at the time, at like the peak of your reliance on it?
Wine predominantly, you know, Sauvignon Blanc. Even at the end, I had this. You tell yourself all these lies, don't you? So because I worked in the wine trade, I was a bit of a wine snob. So even in the end, you know, I'd tell myself that I wasn't drinking out of a brown paper bag, tenant special, so I didn't have a problem. You know, I'd still kid myself, even though in the end I was drinking out of a mug, hiding behind my sofa in case anyone saw me, even though no one came to my house, no one was going to see me. So, yeah, wine. But I mean, I didn't drink anything. I never had a shortage of wine or drink. That was never a problem, so I didn't have that panic of it sort of running out and things.
Did anyone around you notice that maybe you had a problem with alcohol?
Not till the end, because your social, my friends and family, you see them at parties, you see them at gathering, everyone drinks, and I was fun in the beginning. It's only the next day or when I was on my own that the depression and stuff like that. So no, they didn't until the end. And then, I don't know, people don't say anything, do they? I don't know. I mean, people would talk about it a little bit. Towards the very end, everyone knew, because I became practically a recluse. And it muddles with your thinking and stuff.
How do you think it affected things externally? Like, do you think your problem with drinking affected any third parties, like close family or friends, or...?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely my son. I didn't think so at the time. I didn't think he was aware and things, but, we have honest conversations. So, it definitely will have affected him. My family, they had conversations about who my son would live with when I finally killed myself through misadventure or through addiction or through suicide. Everyone around me, really, in the end.
Were they supportive into getting you into recovery?
Yeah, I think people think it's a choice, don't they? They think, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, my dad offered to pay for me to go to rehab, but I knew it wouldn't work. I don't know, I just knew it wouldn't work. I thought he'd better save the money for my son to go to uni or something. I didn't think I was worth the money, if I'm honest. Like, I went to the doctors and I remember him talking about anti-abuse and stuff like that, but I don't know why we Googled how much it cost. And I was just like, well, yeah, I don't know.
How did your recovery start? What did you really do when you said, right, I need to sort this out? What were your first steps?
Well, I mean, probably 10 years before I quit, I said I really need to sort this out. And, I tried the things you do, like moving, starting new jobs, new boyfriend, new towns, new country even. I tried all of those kind of things. But the actual change happened to me was when a friend phoned me from London, and we'd been like partners in crime. We were called Patsy and Eddie. You're probably too young to remember Ab Fab. And she was sober. She was 10 months sober. And I'll never forget, she said to me, "I'm happy, Al. I'm happy." And even then, even though I'd lost everything and wanted to die, I still couldn't imagine life without alcohol because it had felt so uncomfortable. But hearing her say that, I don't know, I had hope for the first time that if she could do it and she was happy, then maybe I could. It was... And I went to a 12-step fellowship meeting and I heard people sharing their stories and they drank like me and they were laughing and joking, and I don't know, I just had hope from then that actually if they could do it, then probably I could. And I was also terrified of giving my full story to the doctors and things because I was a mum, and, when you go in, the first thing they ask you is, "Are you suicidal?" Well, yes, but if I tick yes, they're going to take my child. Have you ever drank when you're on your own with your child? Well, I'm not going to tick that because they're going to take my child. And all of this stuff, I was too frightened. But then I was with these people and they were sharing things, worse things than I'd ever done. And it took away the shame, if that makes sense. It took away the shame and the fear and all of that. So I was able to be honest for the first time. So it was being introduced to 12-step was the change.
Do you guys know what the 12 steps are?
Not really.
Okay, so the 12 steps, things like Alcoholics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous. So it's a program that was written nearly 100 years ago in America, and it's free, and it's one alcoholic or one addict helping another. And so you go through these 12 steps, and once you're well, you then show other people how you go through it, and there's a book that you read and go through. So it's a spiritual program. Some people think it's religious, but it's a spiritual program. And with that, you sort of put your faith in something else, and then you look back at all the stuff that's blocks you off, you know, all your guilt, shame, remorse, all the harms you've done, all your fears. And you kind of look into that, and then you go out and you try and make amends to the people you've hurt and things. And then when you have problems, you kind of pause on them, you take them into meditation is a big thing in it, and then you try and help other people. So it's like it works.
So during your recovery, was there like any, apart from the 12 steps and all that, as you mentioned, was there any coping methods that you did to like as an alternative?
Well, for me, living in North Wales, I have a wonderful dog. So, you know, I'd wake up in the morning and, you know, even if you're not feeling great, just getting outside into nature, that really helps. Feeling connected to something. I think you become quite isolated in addiction at the end. You don't even open the curtains, you know, you don't do things like that. So definitely getting outdoors, exercise. I've become one of those people that I'd be like, oh, I do things like yoga, I go cold water swimming, I like climbing mountains, I like saunas, spending time with other people, helping other people, that's a big thing.
So when you were helping other people, what motivated you to help others?
The main thing is, like, I didn't know that I could exist and live a really happy and full life without substances. I didn't know it was possible because I'd always felt so uncomfortable. And then I took these substances and I felt great, and then they stopped working. I just thought I thought life would be painful, boring and glum and stuff like that if I didn't have a substance in me. I just feel so different, and I'm like, no one has to live hating themselves. No one has to live just in such pain, and they just don't have to. I really believe that anyone can get over anything that's happened in their past with help and support from other people. And someone did that for me, and I would definitely be dead today if someone hadn't helped me. So I kind of feel it's the least I can do is to help other people. And it's really lovely. I've made really nice friends and stuff, and why wouldn't I? It's, you know, it's the most rewarding thing I've done in my life, obviously, apart from my son and my dog.
Do you think your ease of access to alcohol was a highly contributing factor? Because not only is it like a social thing, like you said, and you managed to fit in a lot when doing it with other people, but your career was based around alcohol. So do you think how close you were to it was very negative for you, or?
I think it meant I could hide it from a lot longer, and that I could stay in that delusion that I was doing it because I was enjoying it, that I was choosing to do it, and that it was adding to my life and things, and that it was helping. I suppose, yeah, I mean, it's completely socially acceptable, isn't it? Yeah, and it meant I could do it at silly times, you know, like if you're traveling and it's in the morning, you can have a drink on the plane, no one bats an eyelid, you know, that's okay. I guess it just means you can do it anyway. You don't have to hide it, do you? But I think I would have found something anyway. It might sound a bit weird, but I think initially substances, alcohol, probably saved my life because I didn't know how to cope with my feelings and emotions, and I kind of had this really low self-esteem, suicide ideation and that kind of thing. I think because I had that alongside an eating disorder, I think I might have come to harm another way if I hadn't have found alcohol. I think that actually, in some ways, saved my life as a teenager because it allowed me to function, and I had periods where I was happy and I didn't have to think. I wasn't in this sort of mental torment. Without knowing how to cope with that, if I hadn't found another solution, I probably wouldn't be here either. So it's like a weird sort of way.
The eating disorder and the suicidal thoughts, is that something that you buried and kept hidden from people?
Yeah. I didn't tell anyone that. Because again, it was a way that I could cope with stuff, you know, so it was, I don't know, it was like I'd found a secret solution. I don't know, yeah. think I was. I don't think I understood my thoughts, but I think I was probably embarrassed about it as well.
Was there any contributing triggers towards feeling depressed or low?
I thought that's just how Alex thought and felt and behaved. I didn't know until I came into recovery that actually I can feel really different. I just thought it was my personality. I didn't know you could find ways of making it better, so I suppose that's why I didn't say anything.
Do you think that long-term use, as in like towards after you'd been doing it for a while, do you think that was more detrimental to your mental health than not using it at all?
Oh yeah, definitely. Paranoia was off the scale. Probably the first couple of years in recovery, I could be really paranoid sitting in a room, you know, I'd make up scenarios in my head and stuff like that. That's definitely eased up massively. Very rarely do I feel paranoid now. But my mental health, yeah. Even because at first, if I drank or went out or distracted myself, I was really happy and I functioned really well. You know, I was quite successful. I was a functioning addict for a long time. I wouldn't have classified myself as an addict. I do now, looking back. But the deterioration in my mental health, and I went from being fun to being full of self-pity and very, very depressed. So it didn't help at all in the end, but I still couldn't stop. That's when I realised I'm in trouble here. I'm in trouble here. Like, instead of just waking up depressed, it's like all day long.
What other substances did you end up going to?
The normal standard party drugs. In London, it was really normal for people to take cocaine. Whatever party you went to, it would be available. And things like party drugs. I used to go clubbing a lot. I used to go out dancing. So again, it was really normal for people to take ecstasy, MDMA, things like that. When I was a teenager, I experimented like all of my peers, you know, with smoking marijuana, cooking it, baking cakes with it and things like that, magic mushrooms, acid. But I stopped taking that when I think I had a couple of bad trips. So probably I was quite susceptible to substances. So I just didn't really take it again. But everyone I knew was doing it. You don't think of that as addiction or as a problem, do you? That's just young kids experimenting.
Did you end up picking up on any of them? Or was it just alcohol?
I did use cocaine quite a lot in London, but everyone did. I don't know, because I worked long hours. It's a stimulant, isn't it? It keeps you awake and you don't ever get drunk when taking it. But you do, you just don't think you are. So yeah, that was quite normal. But that didn't help with the mental health, definitely.
So were you doing that consistently, or was it once in a while? Or
Quite consistently, probably about 10 years when I was in London.
So when you was explaining about like you were doing loads of hours and then you go like to go and relax and then you use cocaine, was that like because of the overload and the interaction with other people?
Do you know what? It just made things better. Again, you know, I found something that made things better. You go out, you have a few drinks, you're like, oh, I feel a bit tipsy. Someone would be, oh, have a line, that'll sober you up. You have a line, it sobers you up. Everyone's doing it. You don't think anything of it. So that's what you do. Just seemed really normal to do it with the people I'm mixing in. But I think what happens as well is the more you get into that scene and without knowing you're becoming dependent, your circle of friends changes as well. So you kind of end up hanging around people that are all doing the same thing. So it normalizes everything. Yeah, my old school friends and things like that, if I saw them at a party, they might do it, but they certainly wouldn't be doing it in the week or things like that. But I guess you hang out with them less, don't you? But it's all quite subconscious and never a conscious decision to do that or to be in that. It just suddenly happened that maybe we were all drawn together. Quite a few of my friends from that area are in recovery now, actually, which is really nice.
so did you find yourself using cocaine outside of social settings or not?
I did, yeah. So initially, I took substances to fit in, to be part of, to be comfortable. But then I did end up drinking on my own, using on my own, because I didn't feel comfortable around people anymore. It's almost like, it's like a trick. So all the stuff it gives you in the beginning, it kind of takes it all away, and you end up isolated, doing it on your own and not even enjoying it, being paranoid. It's like, why would anyone do that? I wasn't doing it for fun in the end at all.
And how long does it take to get to that point?
I think it's different with people. I think with me, it took quite a long time, but probably the last 10 years weren't that much fun. There were periods of fun, but most of it really, really wasn't.
When did things start to get better?
Almost immediately, funnily enough. It's a strange thing coming into recovery, and we turn it like an internal snap or this internal switch, I don't know. I was quite lucky when I went into 12-step. I got what you call a sponsor. I got straight into doing the recovery work. Once I knew there was a way to get better, I went at it like at everything, and I threw myself into it 100%. Went to all the meetings. It was just me and my son. I used to have a babysit, and I'd be driving an hour to a meeting each day. I was doing them online. It was before Zoom, but we used to do them over Skype or join meetings in America and stuff like that. So once I knew that I could get well and that I didn't have to have that life, I just went for it. I did everything that I was advised to do. I mean, I was still, mentally I was quite unwell, because you think if you started off as a teenager with low self-esteem and stuff, and then you've smashed your life to bits, you've hurt all the people you love and you care about, it's that guilt and that shame, and it can keep people ill. But I was very lucky that all my friends and my family knew that wasn't the real me. All they wanted was for me to be well, so everyone was really supportive. So I was really supportive. And I found the thing about going into recovery is that if you meet like-minded people, you're able to share all of that stuff, and it's talking and finding that connection. I think connection's so important, and hearing other people's stories is really, really important. So I had that access straight away. So I did start to feel much better, and physically, obviously.
One of the observations that I can say as someone who's not in recovery, because I've never fortunately been in addiction myself personally, but I get to experience recovery communities such as what Alex is mentioning, and the connection aspect is what it's all about. On every encounter that I would have with them, there's hugs, a welcome hug, and then a goodbye hug. You don't necessarily have to be close with them. It's even on just an acquaintance level with people, and that's just something that is not commonly found outside of a recovery community that I've found in social interactions with people. The social isolation that's all over, especially with the internet now, has changed everything. When you were in addiction during the days of the internet as well, weren't you? So yeah. How did the world change in terms of the transition between pre-internet to post-internet? Because you would have been so far down into your addiction at that point anyway, but was there anything that you could you'd be like, oh yeah, things really have changed socially?
I don't know how people socialise. I mean, I live in a little village in North Wales, don't I? And in addiction, I lived in London and in cities. So my life has changed beyond any other way. But I think my choices for that was because I couldn't bear to be on my own or in my own thoughts. So I was attracted to nightclubs, busy places, big cities. And whereas now, I like just being with my dog and not seeing anyone. So I don't know how it is for the rest of people, because I've changed so much. So yeah, I don't know. But definitely, I mean, even since I've been in recovery, when we went into lockdown, the recovery world just, for me, just took off because all the meetings straight away went onto Zoom. So you could then, instead of having to drive an hour and a half and there only been a few meetings a week, meetings are 24 hours a day now, all around the world. And you can hear such people with real long-term, really good sobriety. And so you're connected, you know, anyone can recover anywhere. And I've seen a lot more women coming into recovery since lockdown as well, because of that access to meetings online. I think it's the same, not just for addiction, but all sorts of support groups. I think there's one, probably, I bet you could Google a support group for anything and find a Zoom meeting.
Going back to like socializing and how you explained that, like you were dropped out of school when you were 12.
No, I stayed on and I did my A-levels, but my schoolwork, I stopped looking for external validation and my focus sort of changed because I'd found something else that made me feel better than that. I think I've just always been searching for something to make me feel good, and I'd found that. And also I didn't like not being good at stuff, so if I hadn't handed in an assignment because I hadn't done it because I'd been out, I wouldn't go to the lesson. You know, I would avoid anything unless I was really good at it. I just did really badly in my GCSEs, but then I left afterwards. None of it was ever meant to be permanent. Like, I was always going back to, even when I left uni, I was always going to go back and finish it. Even though I had low self-esteem, very low, I had really high aspirations for myself as well. So it was never going to be satisfied.
That's a lot of pressure you're putting on yourself, isn't it?
Always, yeah. Unless I was the best, I was a complete and utter failure. No middle ground. Whereas now I'm pretty average at most stuff, which is fine.
Yeah, like I was going to say, because I kind of relate to when you said about like not being like fully committed to education at 12. I myself was in like primary school, and then because I have like disabilities and my mental health in its own way, I got into like homeschooling. So I was in homeschooling for like about 4-5 years. And once I was in that homeschooling, we were promised support, educational support. We never received anything. So that made me feel so isolated because we didn't really do much. And with that, it was like socializing. So it's when I finally managed to get the help and access to the mental health, I started to socialize and think, yeah, I'm starting to get better.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes there isn't a lot of support out there. I think we've got to go and find it. If it isn't there, we've got to create it. That's very much my sort of ethos into stuff now. And I'm always looking for new ways to, no one's going to rescue us. We are the cavalry. We've got to do it ourselves. But the wonderful thing is, even it's like recovery, you have to do it yourself. No one else can do it for you, but you don't have to do it alone. And that's the thing with finding people, like-minded people or people with the same thing. You take away the stigma, the shame and all of that stuff, and you can support each other while you do it. But
It's finding the tribe is part of the difficulty for a lot of people, would you say?
yeah.
We talk to people, and one of the common things we hear is that it's like, I just never knew anyone that was in recovery. I never heard people talk about it. Never knew it was all possible. Just like yourself with your friend telling you that they did it.
Absolutely. You know, I'm in my 40s and I was ready to die. Yeah, well ready. Yeah, I don't know what would have happened if she hadn't gone into recovery. I don't, because you go to the doctors and stuff, and I don't know. There's just such shame with it, isn't there? There's real stigma, and I don't think they have an understanding of it's more than a physical addiction. It's something going on in our thinking, and I don't think they look at treating that. I think a lot of my experience was they think once the substance is removed from you, you're fixed and that's it, you go on with life. My experience is once the substance is removed, that's when the work starts, because you're raw. You're all these emotions and feelings that you've got no idea how to handle or cope with them, and all the reasons you used to use in the first place. That's when you need that support. But it's hope, isn't it? It's giving people hope, and I think that sharing of stories is really important.
Whilst you were addicted, did you mistake any of the problems that alcohol was causing you for anything else? Did you reach out for any other types of support thinking that you had a different problem whilst you didn't think alcohol was a problem?
Absolutely. So I did reach out for mental health, not being able to sleep, depression, all of that kind of stuff, and was just prescribed more drugs, which is not really very helpful. I also did counselling and things like that, but while somebody is under the influence, you don't present properly. So I probably could have been diagnosed with 100 different things, but really it was alcoholism. I think until you remove the substance, you can't really work on what's going on.
What consistent struggles do you think alcohol posed to you whilst you were addicted? Things that you probably wouldn't have experienced had you not been addicted.
Well, it's just, you make really poor decisions, don't you? You don't have your clear mind. Obviously, I could have had misadventure.
What do you feel as if you missed out on in life in general because of your alcoholism? Do you feel as if you missed out on anything and, you chose not to do things because of your alcoholism or anything like that?
I could have been a better mum. That will always be my biggest regret. Obviously, I could have been more present as a mum. I could have been a better daughter. In terms of, I could have had a career. I could have been quite financially stable. All that kind of stuff. But I don't know. I never got married. But I don't know. It's like a weird thing. People say that they're like grateful addicts or grateful alcoholics and stuff, and I think if alcohol hadn't been such a problem for me, I wouldn't have gone into recovery. And if I hadn't have done that, I don't think I would have ever liked myself. So if I hadn't found alcohol as a teenager, I probably would have gone through life with that low self-esteem, low self-worth and all of that stuff, and not liking myself as a human being. I wouldn't have let people down, but I'd have been like living as a fraud and died unhappy. Whereas now, I like who I am and I'm really happy. So... But I think that's the tools you learn in recovery. Maybe it's something everyone should learn, really. So, I don't know, it's missed opportunities, but I don't regret it because I am who I am today.
Did you have any ambitions before you felt like low self-esteem?
Do you know, I think I've always wanted to be a wife and mother. I mean, I've always just wanted to be an upstanding member of the community. To have a nice house, get married, have kids, a dog, the normal thing everyone wanted, really. That's not been my story. I mean, I have a really lovely life now.
How far through the recovery journey do you believe you are today, and how long has it taken you to get there?
Well, I'll be 6 years in March in recovery. I feel like I'm early in. I'm pretty confident, touch wood, that this is the beginning. It's the beginning of my journey. Not that I didn't live before, because, I've had some wonderful experiences. Even though I was in addiction, I've had great experiences with people and life and stuff like that. But I'm learning stuff all the time. I'm learning more about myself. I've become more confident and happier all the time. Whenever I do new stuff, all that old anxiety and stuff can come back. I'm still a bit socially awkward. But I don't mind it now. It's like, I think because once you go through something like addiction and come out the other side, you kind of know that as a human being, you can get through anything. It just will be uncomfortable for a little while until it's not.
We'll call it that. Okay, how was that?
Really good.
Yeah.
Expectations met?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I'd say so, yeah.
I'm curious with what your knowledge about addiction recovery was beforehand. So what did you know about it going into this?
Probably thought it's like something that if someone had like influence on the other people to like attract them into it, and then becoming ill from that.
I've never really delved into how detrimental ease of access to things can be. So I was glad to get something out of that. And I didn't really know much about support groups, as in I'm aware of their existence and I know what they do. But I don't personally know anyone who's gone through them. all the people I know who've struggled with things either are still struggling with things or are recovering on their own along a rocky road, you know what I mean?
And I think I didn't know either, you know, until I found one. It's not something that the doctors or anyone tell you, because I guess that there's a financial implication, isn't it? So you see government organisations, they don't share that knowledge always.
I think it's a strange one with the medical system because they're very averse to mentioning peer support groups, it seems, and that goes along not just with addiction recovery groups, but also other groups to do with anything that it could be considered like a medical problem. They like to do things within their own system, it seems, and and as Alex mentioned, a lot of the time that involves being put on some kind of drug that they want to give you, rather than, talking therapies can be recommended, and that does go a long way for people, it seems. The services are out there for that. It's severely underfunded, and the availability for the NHS with such therapies, it's really hard to get into that. And then for private support, it's expensive, and a lot of people who are in positions where they need that support, they're scraping by funding their addiction, rather than being able to put it towards things such as therapy. You're trying to ask someone who's in addiction to give up part of their addiction, and it's not going to happen, is it? Like, would you say, Alex?
Yeah, I think people's self-worth as well is that low. I don't think they value themselves enough to pay that. Yeah, I guess they look for a medical explanation for it, and sometimes there isn't.
There's definitely not enough support out there in a professional sense. There's rehabs that exist, but it's not NHS, is it? It's all private.
Private, and they're not that successful either. Rehabs, the most successful is 12-step, and it's free across the world, but no one signposts it, which is really bizarre. It's been the most successful for the last 90 years.
There's quite a lot of politics involved in the businesses that profit from addiction.
Yeah, there's this fine line between, providing the support to people and we need to make profit. Because they're not going to do something that they don't know they're going to profit from. So sometimes it's not worth putting in the extra step for them financially that would help people more, but they won't make as much money.
There's definitely a lot of arguments to be made that a lot of the businesses that are set up there are not doing it with the best interest in mind for their clients that have come through, and that you've heard the term revolving door. There's definitely a lot of criticism in the industry for that.
It's not long enough. It's so, I think addiction, it's people are in addiction for so long. Just going to rehab for a month is not going to change the programming that a person's had. So I think it is lifelong, really, to be in recovery. It is lifelong, really.
Yeah, so because that and there's different views as well that people can have when they're in recovery. So like Alex is expressing a view of if you're an addict, it stays with you pretty much lifelong, and abstinence is the way to go for Alex in her situation.
I see that view a lot because life was addiction and now life is not being addicted. So you've gone from living a life of addiction to living a life of I need to not be addicted. So it is really something that you have to keep up for the rest of your time, really.
And I actually don't want to use substances now at all. I don't need to. I've learned other ways of, and I like just in really feeling stuff. I like just enjoying life as it is. I'm not chasing the huge highs.
What do they tell you in schools when it comes to addiction and
When I
drugs?
was in primary school, they didn't really mention it at all.
Yeah, because you were homeschooled.
Yeah.
So with your homeschool situation, was it ever brought up?
No.
I heard nothing about it until I made it to college.
Really?
Yeah, I heard nothing from school other than one local police officer who volunteers to like teach classes and things. He came into the school and gave this silly little presentation on how it's illegal. So we're not really learning about it, but we're learning that it's bad because it's illegal. And that's about all we got. I didn't really know anything about anything until college.
That's shocking that that's still such a gap in the education system there.
I mean, a lot of people were using it before we made it to college, and they wouldn't have known anything about it. I personally haven't used anything like that, but you know, I know a lot of people who do and have. Some of them still know nothing today, but they've heard about things, and they wouldn't have heard about anything until a few years ago.
Yeah, and a lot of it would be learned from probably media. And when you've got a police officer coming into your school and only really drawing attention to the illegal substances, then...
Yeah, I never heard anything about alcohol, ever. I only ever heard about cold, hard drugs, because that's illegal and that's bad. But I'd never heard anything about alcohol, ever.
One of the most impactful things in someone's life that can predispose them to addiction is how their childhood was and their environment and how they feel, and that's where it leads into self-medicating and whatnot. So was that a surprise for you when, you know, when that came up as about, like, you know, as, you know, Alex's story and how, you know, that was the route that she got into, you know, using it as medication, or was that not a surprise?
It was a surprise to a point, but it was also not a surprise. Like, in my head, it was like a coping mechanism to go and just go on about your day and life and trying to get past day by day. But it's like, it was a surprise of like how accessible it was.
I was rather neutral with it. A lot of the people I know, the fact that they use it has convinced them that they need it and that there is external problems that they need to self-medicate. It's like, I saw this video once of this little bird running along and it eats a seed, gets really excited, then when it comes down off the high, it feels worse, so it does it again, and it has the high again, but it doesn't go quite as high until the high is neutral and then negative. I feel as if that is what it is mostly today, as in they'll do it in a social setting, they'll do it to fit in, because they don't want to stand out, they want to fit in, and then they feel worse when they're down, and then they convince themselves that that is the right thing to do, and they convince themselves that they need to self-medicate because that is how they work, and they get worse whenever they're not on, so they believe the reason that they're worse is because they're not on, when in reality it's because of how much they are on. So I was quite, you know...
That little film with the bird is very good, actually. I've seen
Yeah,
it.
I love that video.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Knowing the Score. Join us next time where we have Ross, who continues to bust a lot of the myths around addiction. See you next time.